to the Oconee Heritage Center tonight for our first in our series, which is going to be a great year-long series, the ABCs of Oconee. All of our most of our programming this year will be surrounded by A, B, C, D, etc., until we get to Z. So please check back every month for our different programs. Just a few little things going on this month. If you're interested in joining some other events. Throughout the month of March, we're having March Membership Madness. You know, March Madness like the football. I mean, not football, basketball. See, I'm not a sports person. I don't know. But, you know, we're having a little friendly competition. Whoever recruits the most members this month will win a prize pack. So if you want to join yourself and recruit others to be members of the Oconee Heritage Center, it's $20 for individual and $30 for family. So it helps us maintain operations throughout the year. So it really helps us out with the membership. So please compete, recruit those members. On Friday, tomorrow, I'm getting ahead of myself. Tomorrow's book club. We've had these events rescheduled because of the weather. So tomorrow is book club. We're reading Lady Almina and the Real Downton Abbey. Our whole year is going to be books themed in the Gilded Age, so around 1880 to about World War I. So we've got a lot of interesting selections. If you're interested, ask me for a list and I'll give you one. Friday is our big event. We're having our exhibit opening of The Shaping of South Carolina. It starts at 6 o'clock. And then we will have the next in our ABCs of Oconee. We'll have B is for Borders. Alan John Zupan of the South Carolina Geodetic Commission will be speaking about the border issues and the boundary issues of South Carolina. So please come out. There'll be good times. We'll have some light refreshments. So everything's better with food, right? So please come. And then Thursday, March 12th, we're going to have our next in our series. We're going to have a lunch and learn at 12:30, which is C is for Cherokee. Dr. Dave Levere, he will be speaking about the Cherokees in Oconee County, so please join us. And then Friday, March 13th, we have our monthly trivia night. It's always fun. Please come out. We suggest a $5 donation for trivia night, but it's always a good time. If you wouldn't mind, think of a donation just to keep programs like this going for the Heritage Center. We depend a lot on generous donations. So if you wouldn't mind putting $1 or $2 in the donation jar, we'd love that. Keeps us going here, keeps us employed. So without further ado and without my rambling, I'd like to present Mr. Ed Land of Chattooga Belle Farm. Land.
Well, thank y'all for inviting me here tonight to talk about agritourism and in Oconee County. I guess we have out of 2 or 3 agritourism farms in Oconee County. We're one of those. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the history, and we'll tell you a little bit about the farm as we go through. But it was, if y'all don't know me, a lot of you don't, but I was in construction for about 25 years, ran a masonry company here in upstate South Carolina. If you had asked me 10 years ago that I'd be running a wedding venue and agritourism business and a bistro, I'd say just crazy. I said that just wasn't going to happen. But because of economic reasons and my love of the outdoors and love of farming and love to turn things green and make something grow, kind of slowed down in the construction industry and closed it down and started Chattooga Belle Farm. People ask me all the time where the name come from, and Chattooga from the river between South Carolina and Georgia, one of the most beautiful rivers in the state of South Carolina, by the way, and much appreciated. Belle. Both my grandmother, one was Laura Belle and one was May Belle. So on the Crocker side and the land side, so that's where the Belle came from the Chattooga Belle farm. Somewhere back about 1958, in Long Creek, several gentlemen came together. Mr. DeWitt and Mr. White were two of them, Mr. Matheson from Long Creek. Started purchasing land in Long Creek with the intentions of building and putting in one of the largest apple farms east of the Mississippi River. With the help of the Clemson Extension agents and Clemson University, they started planting trees in the early 60s, clearing land, purchasing land. Anyway, they wound up with about 1,600 acres of land in Long Creek. Like I said, it was the largest apple farm east of the Mississippi River. Nobody grew more apples than the Horseshoe Lake Farm did in its heyday, east of the Mississippi. There's some good pictures of Mr. Boozer and his family still, I mean, some others still live around here, I'm not sure. Is he still surviving, or does anybody know? Ernie, do you know? I don't think so. Okay. They're building one of the irrigation lakes behind them there. You can see where they're clearing there and grading and building a dam. They wound up building about 6 lakes in Long Creek all for irrigation at that time with help of Clemson Extension and the Soil Conservation Group. Mr. Matheson was part of the program. He actually helped purchase the land up there. He also had his own apple farm, but he helped kind of acted like a purchasing agent for Horseshoe Lake Farms, and went around to local people and small farms and people that were ready to get off the farm and move to the city, and started purchasing up the property there in Long Creek. Some of the first, the Apple Festival got started in those early years, about 1963. I think it was the first year that it got started, and it became a pretty big thing in its day. Some really good aerial photos of the original orchard planting. Those trees probably about 5 years old right there in '64. Like I said, I think the first ones were planted somewhere about 1958. It's when the first trees were planted in Long Creek for Horseshoe Lake Farms. This is a kind of interesting photo that was kind of found in some archives at the Ag Office, and we've traced it down and talked to many people and figured out this was at Clemson House, which was the only place in our area that you could have a banquet. And as you can see, that's Groucho Marx with an apple in one hand and a cigar in the other. And then his girlfriend at the time, Eva Hartford, actually he had a daughter by her. Well, which brings up another story. People always hear about Groucho Marx and everything. Well, he was a part owner of Horseshoe Lake Farms, and that's why he's here. He wasn't a large owner, and nobody that I have talked to knows really how he got vested in Horseshoe Lake Farms, or how he got connected with Mr. White or Mr. DeWitt. Nobody knows the story, but he was a part owner. And also, a lot of people don't realize that Robert Horton was a part owner, and if you remember who he was, he played Shenandoah. For all us, well, we are all that age in here, except the young ones in the back. We should remember those things. And Parnell Roberts, that played Adam on Bonanza, was also a part owner in Horseshoe Lake Farms. And I've had that confirmed. But it was a tax write-off for them, being an agricultural province. It was a good place to diversify, put their money somewhere they thought was secure. And it was a great marketing tool for Horseshoe Lake Farms to have Groucho show up once a year for the banquet when he was coming, and just show his face in Long Creek. Just some other pictures of as the apple industry grew there in Long Creek. Long Creek had its own marketing authority. That was through the South Carolina Department of Agriculture. They had to form a marketing authority. They had their own packing house, packing line, grading, cold storage, and it was like a co-op, apple co-op, basically. There are other ones in the United States now, but that was the first one in our area. And so any grower besides Horseshoe Lake Farms or anybody else could bring their apples to the co-op. They would run them through the processing, put them in cold storage, and do that for so much per bushel. And then they would try to find a market for you. If you didn't already have a market for your apples, then they would help you find a market on the open market and sell them at the farmers markets throughout the southern United States, which was really a pretty good thing. And there's pros and cons I've heard. I listen to a lot of stories in Long Creek from the old apple farmers, and every morning I sit at the Long Creek General Store and drink coffee about an hour before I go to the farm. And so there's a lot of the older guys coming in. I shouldn't say old guys, but the farmers come in and we talk about things, and I ask questions all the time about the apple industry and what happened and all the different things. But I've learned a lot just listening to those guys. Oconee County had its own apple brand at its time, Oconee County apples. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to see again? That we'd have Oconee apples. Were any of y'all at the Apple Festival meeting where I gave this little presentation in the fall? Did I repeat something? At one time, from Westminster to the Georgia state line, there was 56 apple stands. From Westminster to the Georgia state line on Highway 76, 56 apple stands along that highway. Every little pull-off had an apple stand. Everybody had their own little orchard and independence, and people came from all over the southeast to Long Creek in the fall to buy apples. They'd have the apple cider, and the honey, and the jellies and jams, and fresh apples, and it was a big thing. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember coming through Long Creek as a teenager, I guess, and seeing a lot of the activity, but it didn't register with me. It didn't stick with me the impact that, how big that was in its day. My wife Kitty is here with me tonight too, and I wanted to bring that up and thank her. She's the one that put this presentation together and did the research on a lot of the newspaper articles all over the upstate. It's hard to find a lot of information about apples. It's hard to find pictures from apple orchards. People just, I don't know, they didn't keep a lot of information. The Matheson family actually gave us some clippings from newspapers, some articles and family pictures and stuff. That's where some of this stuff came from. But my wife Kitty put most of this stuff together on the slide presentation. This was Horseshoe Lake when it was being built. They had the dance, they had the barbecue, and the dance was the big thing that got started. See, the Apple Festival, most people don't realize, started in Long Creek. It didn't start in Westminster, it started in Long Creek. And then somehow it got moved to Westminster, and it's never come back to Long Creek. I push every year trying to get some kind of event back up the mountain, and hopefully this year we're going to have a barbecue and a dance back up in Long Creek and tie it to the Apple Festival, maybe Thursday night or kick off there. But we're really trying to do that to get it brought back. As any kind of farming in the South or anywhere else, it has its challenges. Last year's challenge was the cold. We were at 3 degrees for a long period of time. Then we had a late frost on the 28th of April, I think it was. And it was down to 27 degrees overnight. And so we lost all our peaches last year. We lost 2/3 of the apples. So, whether it's hot and dry or cold and wet is the thing that farmers throughout America constantly have to battle. And then if it's not the weather, then it's pest and disease. And so most people don't realize the challenge that it takes for us to produce food in America. And it's not such an easy thing. And then as soon as you get one medicine, I call it, for our crops that works on this fungus, then it becomes resistant. Just like in a hospital, when strep has become so resistant to penicillin, then what do they use? Well, they have to change it. Well, while I'm on that topic too, people always ask us, are we organic growers? No, I say we're natural growers. We're conventional. Some of our crops are pretty much organic. My beef is almost 100% organic. Our blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries are almost 100% organic. But I use the analogy all the time. Most of us have probably been to the doctor at some point in our life. We've probably been sick. Have you ever taken medication? Probably, unless you're totally natural. We've probably taken a medication. Well, plants get sick and they need to be medicated. Whether it's with a fungicide, a pesticide, or whatever it may be, they have to take their medicine to stay healthy. And in the South, especially in the hot, humid climate that we live in, it is really, really tough to grow apples and peaches, I can tell you that. Well, people always ask, what happened to the apple industry in Long Creek? It was such a big thing, it was so successful. You know, all the things that were going on. And, well, I asked many people a question, and I got 25 different answers. But I think I've kind of put it together, put the puzzles together, and I think I figured out what happened. And there's three main causes of the demise of the apple industry in Oconee County. Number one, it was a transition from family to the next generation. They farmed it their whole life. It's like somebody growing up on a dairy farm. The last thing they want to do is milk a cow when they grow up and become adults. Well, the last thing people want to do is they picked apples, sprayed apples, pruned apples, harvested apples. They don't want to do that. So when it passed on to the next generation, they didn't have the same motivation as the previous generation. They didn't have the passion that their fathers and mothers had. And that's what it takes to be successful in business, is to have the passion for it. The next thing was they had 3 years of freeze-out. In the late 80s, they had 3 years that had total freeze-out of the crops and the apples in Long Creek. Then the third thing was 1991, the federal government, U.S. Department of Agriculture, opened up the import of apple juice concentrate from China. Imagine that. Imagine that. Well, once they started importing the apple juice concentrate, they had a market for the good apples when they had apples, but they couldn't sell the cull apples or juice apples. The Moore brothers poured out, it was on Channel 4 News, the year they did it, dumped out dump truck after dump truck load of juice apples because they weren't bringing anything. It wasn't worth them to ship it to point A to point B. There was no money in it. So they lost all those apples. And so that was kind of the nail in the coffin, I guess, for the apple industry in Long Creek. And that's kind of when it started falling apart. Horseshoe Lake was sold off about twice, went bankrupt. Farm Credit had it. They sold it, split it up. Forest Service bought a lot of the property for the headwaters of Chattooga. And then Moore Brothers bought part of it, and it just kind of fell apart. And then when it was all done, there was only about 4 growers left, still growing apples in Long Creek. And there was over 2,500 acres of apples, Horseshoe Lake having 1,600 acres, and the other farmers had the rest. But 2,500 acres of apples all of a sudden went down to about 300 acres by the late 90s. Is all that was left. Well, we bought the farm about 2008. It was all grown up. Apple trees had been unattended for all those years. What was left of it, 138 acres. We pushed and shoved and burned about 22,000 apple trees off Horseshoe Lake Farm, the section that we bought. Apple trees are like us, they have a lifespan. 25 to 30 years is about the lifespan of an apple tree, and after then, you need to replace it. And so we started doing that. Had the idea one day, I was on top of the hill up there, and if you've not been to the farm, I think most of you have probably been to the farm. One of the prettiest views you'll see in Oconee County. It's not because it's ours, it just is what it is. But somebody stepped up to me and said, "Oh, what a beautiful place to have a wedding." And I'd never thought of it, and I said, wheels started turning. Next thing I'm visiting wedding venues in upstate and looking and checking and researching and then seeing financially was it worth doing something like that. So we started building, putting the building in, tank tower and the main building, which has been expanded twice since then. We've added on a kitchen, full service kitchen and canning kitchen on the left hand side now. We opened and run our bistro. Anyway, we just started replanting things, but I wanted to have a U-pick operation where people could come and pick their own fruit and see the farm, experience the farm, be a part of it, and that's where the agritourism comes in. People want to know where their food comes from now. They want to see it. They want to see the farmer and see how you grow it, the practices that you do on your farm. And so, you know, we are very sustainable. Everything on some of these aerial photos, Everything on that farm drains off pretty much to Horseshoe Lake. And we pump it back up to the top of the hill, what runs off there, back up to the tank tower, and gravity feed back down to all of our crops. I don't plant anything I can't irrigate. It's too big a gamble, and I'm not that big of a gambler. Irrigation is really cheap compared to the loss of the crop because of the hot heat. So everything we plant now, we irrigate on the farm. We grow about 18 different varieties of fruit now, from table grapes and wine grapes, 7 varieties of peaches, nectarines, and apricots, and those are our peaches, and those are our eggs, actually. Some robin's nest right there, we call it. Blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, mulberries, 26 varieties of apples. Last year, we just put in a new block of high-density apples. We planted 1,000 apple trees on 1 acre. It's a new type of system that they're doing all over the United States now. It started actually in New Zealand, I think was the first place it was used, and then in Canada, and now it's really expanding all over North Carolina. You have such a small footprint that people say, well, how do you do that? Well, our trees are 5 feet apart. They're planting them right now 2.5 feet apart. In North Carolina, Mr. Doug Pace just planted a whole orchard of block, and they're 2.5 feet apart. What you do is create a hedgerow out of apple trees. So when you prune it, it's easier. When you harvest, it's easier. When you spray, it's easier. And you capture everything right there in that one area. It has to be irrigated, it has to be fertilized on a regular basis. And that's where we're digging the post holes for those apple trees. People say, well, how much can you produce on 1 acre? Well, like I said, we got 1,000 trees on 1 acre. And if each tree produced 100 apples, how much is that? 100,000 apples, right there. Maximum production is 150 apples per tree. Is all I want any of the trees ever to produce. It's about 150 apples per tree. So anyway, we've got those on a trellis system. So as the limbs grow up, the main shaft of the tree grows up, we tie those limbs out, tie them out, tie them out. We do that 4 times. Trees won't ever be over about 12 feet tall. They're on a dwarf or semi-dwarf rootstock, so they're going to stay smaller. Also grow muscadines. The great thing about muscadines is it's a native plant. It takes very, very little effort to grow muscadines once they're established and trained on the trellis. And so last year was our best year that we've ever had in muscadines. These muscadines have been in the ground now 6 years, I think. This will be 6th year coming. We harvested 13 tons of muscadines off that one block. And most of it went to wine. So 4 varieties of blueberries. Out of everything I've grown on the farm, blueberries was my toughest struggle. The reason being it was the old apple orchard. They limed it. Blueberries don't like lime. It took me 3 to 4 years to get the soil conditions turned around to where it was acid enough for the blueberries. And they finally turned around last year. But that's my fault because I'm not patient enough. I want to plant it and then I'll figure it all out. See, I should have did the soil amendments first and got soil right, waited 2 years and planted blueberries, but that's just not my nature. Also grow Arctic kiwis. They've been a challenge getting established, and we finally learned we're planting them too deep. They need sandy loam soil. The section where these are have pretty red clay, and they drowned in a lot of them. So that's our biggest issue. When we replant, we're raising them up and mixing a little bit of sand in with the soil to give it a little more drainage. So, but they'll do great. They'll grow well here. Arctic kiwi is the size of a grape, and it doesn't have the fuzz, the amount of fuzz that a full-size kiwi has. You just plop the whole thing in and eat like a grape. Wonderful fruit. And this is my wife's favorite, Japanese persimmons. We put in 15 trees 5 years ago, and when we harvested the first ones, I didn't have a clue what it was going to taste like. I'd never tasted a Japanese persimmon. Never put one in my mouth until we produced them right there at the farm. It started getting orange. I finally go out there and I said, I think that's ready. So I pulled it off. It was still hard as rock. I said, oh God. Take a knife, slice it open. It's like a crunchy apple. Sweet, flavorful, no pit, no core, no seed. You can eat the whole fruit with the stem. It makes wonderful landscaping, edible landscaping is what I call it, around your home. Put it on the south side of the house, out in the middle of the yard, you'll be amazed in 5 years the fruit it can produce. Very little attention it needs. Can't over-fertilize it. Does not like nitrogen. It'll drop the fruit. I learned that lesson one year because I put the nutrients to it. All of a sudden, all the fruit started falling off. So I started doing my research, and finally found an article in North Carolina. Over-fertilize, too much nitrogen, it'll drop the fruit. I said, oh, there you go. So now we throw a little bit of 10-10-10, that's it, we're done with it. But wonderful fruit. We like it so much, we just planted 3 more rows this year. I planted another row, so we have about 5 rows of Japanese persimmons. We sell every one we produce for $1 a piece. It's a good money maker too. Goji berries, another up and coming health food. It's from China. It looks beautiful, but it tastes like a cross between a tomato and a pepper. Nothing sweet about it. When you hear berry, you think sweet, nothing sweet about it. You can find them in a grocery store. They'll be dried and covered in chocolate. There's a reason. There's a reason they cover them in chocolate. Fresh, garnished on a salad, they're great. We use them in the bistro on our salads and stuff. High in antioxidant, high in all kind of good, healthy things if you hadn't done research on them. My fear with the goji berry is it's going to become an invasive species if we're not careful. It's a very aggressive grower, turns into a bush. Birds love to eat them. I can just see the seed spread. We saw one pop up at the farm, and so I'm not sure where it came from and how, so that's just something to think about. Anyway, all those different varieties of fruit that we grow at the farm. Love growing. I was out there. We've had some trouble with borers in our peaches. You have a greater borer and a lesser borer. I don't know if anybody's familiar with peaches. When you see the ooze, the jelly start oozing out, there's a reason it's oozing out. It's because there's a borer in there digging in most of the time he's eating. And so we were spraying for those today. Opened up farm store 2010, is that right? Yeah, 2010, spring 2010. We sell our fresh products in there, fresh vegetables. We also have our beef that we sell. We'll get that in a minute, but a lot of our products are in the store. Apple, we're all about apple anything. Apple salsa, apple chutney, apple jelly, apple cider. If it's apple, we make something out of it. Fresh cider, that's actually muscadine cider we're making that day. We now have a whole new setup down in the lower building. We've closed in the barn, bought stainless steel presses and grinders, and we're set up down there, and we produce a lot of cider in the fall. And one of our best #1 sellers, and probably the best cider, is apple muscadine. You grind the apples and muscadines together and squeeze them out when they come in, and it's wonderful cider. Mr. Jack Collins, and everybody knows Mr. Jack probably from Oconee County. He's been here much time, but he's got his beehives on the farm, and he's supposed to be bringing about 20 more this year. His bees are doing good. So any honey off the farm comes that we sell in the store comes off our farm now. He takes care of them, but it all stays there on the farm after he piles it. We've got 8 different varieties of wine. Most of ours are sweet fruit. We have one that's a French varietal grape, it's in Cynthiana. The rest of them, we have apple, peach, muscadine, scuppernong, blackberry blends, some other blends. But all that's is our excess fruit goes to wine. We also sell Hasegawa orchard ladders. Those, check it out online sometime or look it up if you're looking for a ladder out at your home. It's one of the safest ladders. Got to throw that plug in on here. Safest ladders you'll ever come across. We sell weddings. I tell people we sell relationships. I just joke about it, but we do have some of the sweetest, nicest, kindest couples you'll ever meet in your life have come to the farm to be married. It just amazes me every time. And my wife, Kitty, does most all the communications with them, sets them up. She'll be meeting with like 2 tomorrow. But it's been one of the most joyful businesses I think I've ever been in. I enjoy construction. I enjoy building things in my hand, but I never, construction's construction, a bunch of, men fighting and butting heads all the time on a construction job. It just didn't have the pleasure that this does. But we have really met some really neat couples in the past 5 years. Some beautiful brides, beautiful weddings, and just a beautiful place to have one. I think we've got 57 weddings booked this year already. I think we had 60 last year. That's a growing part of the business. With agritourism, it takes a combination of everything we do to make it go. I can tell you that. They had this couple, both of them were raft guides from the Wild Water, got married there, Big John, but she's about this tall, he's about this tall. And they had a raft pulled out there that afternoon, and it was full of beer. The whole raft just full of ice and beer. It was fun. Also raised black Angus beef. We've really been pushing hard. Just put in a new cross fencing operation, some winter watering troughs, doing rotational grazing, and expanding the herd operation. But the beef business has been good, I'll have to admit. If anybody has cows, it's a good time to have cows right now. Cattle prices have been holding now for the past 4 years. I've been amazed. They take some little dips, but on a steady incline up. And they're about to cap out there because it's going to overprice itself. When people can't afford steak, then they're going to say, gotta go buy pork chop or chicken. So,
Are your beef registered?
yes, we have registered Angus beef, registered bulls, and like I said, we're probably 99% organic with our beef. We don't use any growth hormones. We only use grass and hay. We'll supplement the mama cows in the wintertime with a little bit of feed and have to during lactation. But no, we don't give them anything.
Do you just sell the beef there, or?
Yeah, we sell it there. Just sell it there at the store, plus we use it in the bistro. The burgers there will be our burger. We last year couldn't keep up with the demand for beef, really.
People, you have such a high demand of people that come to the store to buy the beef, or do you buy a half or a side, or?
Well, we in the beginning, we did halves, wholes, and quarters,
Uh-huh.
and it just became too complicated for the average American person because they can't understand weights. There's 3 weights of cow. It's on the hoof, it's hanging, and it's processed weight. And they buy in the hanging weight, and they think they're supposed to get that much when they go home. They weigh it up and say, well, Mr. Bland, we didn't get all our beef. You owe us some beef. I said, well, there's bones, and there's fat, and there's coal, and there's trimmings. And I said, so it got too hard for me to explain to people, and so you can come into the store and buy frozen. Ours is right there, and you get whatever you want. And if you buy $100 worth, you get 10% discount. So that's the way we changed it. But I really enjoy working with the cattle at the farm. We had a new calf yesterday, right in the middle of the day. We were right there. We were doing some rotational grazing with some temporary fence, and we're moving them all over the farm. If I can keep water to them, I'll move anywhere because it's cheaper to eat the grass off the ground than it is to bale it up. So we just keep moving around. 2 years ago, we opened up Belle's Bistro. Never thought it would grow as fast as it did. We had built the deck. That's plenty big. Well, next year I built one like 6 times bigger than that. And it's not quite big enough. But it's done well. We have a wonderful chef there, Melissa Smart, cooks for us now her 2nd year, and some great people that help her during the summer. People talk about the younger generation, and they're never as good as the previous generation. But let me tell you, we have had some of the best young help at our farm. High school kids, college kids. You couldn't ask for better kids in Oconee County and in the surrounding area that have worked at our farm. And I have to say my hat goes off to those young people, and they don't get enough praise sometimes, but they really do a good job at the farm.
Is your bistro open now?
No, we'll open from May to October. 1st of May to the end of October is the schedule. And this year we'll be open every day but Monday. We'll be closed on Mondays. They just need 1 day to prep stuff and get ready and take a day off. 7 days a week is just too much in the restaurant business for me. I need a break too, because some days I'm back there flipping burgers instead of out there doing what I'm supposed to do because we get behind. We also do educational farm tours as part of the agritourism program. It's one of our biggest outlets that we can spread the word about our farm. I think last year I figured up we had about 2,000 kids came to the farm with different school groups. We had about 28,000 people visit our farm last year through weddings, bistro, farm tours, and just regular things going on, U-pick operations. Most people don't realize how big agriculture is in Oconee County. But farm tours are really great. We do a rotation, send them in different classes. We'll bring down about 25 students per group, teach them about apple production, or if we're picking apples or running the apple line, let them see that. If we're making cider, we might be grinding grits or cornmeal that day. Take them on a hay ride or wagon ride. just make sure they have a good time and learn something about agriculture while they're there. But anyway, it's fun. We built a little playground for them today. Now we've added on this whole other deck over that way. Farm to School program, one of my favorite things I love to talk about. All those people you see stand there are the food service coordinators from Habersham County Schools in Georgia. Each one of those ladies right there runs a cafeteria at school. It's one of the best programs they've got started in Georgia. And knock on wood for South Carolina, it'll come. But they believe in good, healthy food for their students. They support it. And so we bring them there to the farm, give them a tour, show them where the apples are grown. So we now sell apples to Habersham County schools. On a regular basis, as long as we have apples to supply. It's growing in Georgia. Hopefully, I think this year, Raven County is going to get on board with the farm school program. We just had an intern from the South Carolina Department of Agriculture at the farm this week talking about the farm to school program in South Carolina. We really need to, as parents, grandparents, and citizens, really need to push for healthy local food in our schools. I don't know if y'all have been into a school cafeteria lately or hear children or grandchildren talk about what's on the plate that day, but you know, it's not all that great. But another problem is they only get like $1.50 to do it. And so it's hard to provide good, healthy, local food for $1.50 a meal. The new standards that came out just a couple of years ago, and I think it's implemented this year, 2015 is mandatory, they have to serve 4 ounces of fresh fruit on every meal. 8 ounces of fresh fruit for breakfast if the school serves breakfast. Now, that's a mandatory federal requirement that's out there with the new food program. And so, how easy is it to wash a 4-ounce apple and put it on the plate? Pretty easy. Rather than chopping or preparing. So I think that apples will continue to grow. The demand for apples in America will continue to grow. Now you see them in McDonald's. The choice on the Happy Meal is apples. Yogurt. Sliced apples, yeah. That's a good thing. Because the marketing part, you know, for me as a farmer, you know, create the market, then grow to meet the market. And that's what we did with our 1,000 apple trees. We found the market with Habersham schools. We know we can sell our apples over there, so now we plant more apples, grow more apples, acquire more apples. What do we have to do? Wonderful program. South Carolina needs to get on board. Senior groups and tour buses, church groups. Big thing in the fall. People want to come pick apples now. They want, you know, used to that was a big thing to come to Long Creek in the fall. Oh, we got to go up to Long Creek and get some apples. And people came from all over, like I said earlier. Well, now they can come back. Now there's a place to come and have lunch, pick some apples, shop in the store, taste some wine, whatever you want to do. Enjoy the view, sit out on the deck. So we have a lot of groups like that coming. We also have 18-hole disc golf course at the farm. I think we have 4, maybe 5 now in Oconee County. And so ours is about 1.5 miles long, and it's a pretty challenging course. People come on a regular basis. The disc golf course is open year-round. Doesn't matter if anybody's there or not. You just come and play. Had a mud run obstacle course. We tried that last year in May. Had a really good time. Things like that sometimes don't work for us. So, we tried it. There it was. This, on the other hand, didn't work. And we had an Easter egg hunt and a buffet on Easter Sunday, and had about 200 people show up. And that was the first time we did it, was last year. And now people are already emailing and calling. We can't decide whether we're going to do it or not. We've got to kind of do that pretty quick, don't we? Special events are challenging when it comes to agritourism. If y'all have ever been in a church planning group or an organization where, oh, we're going to have this, oh, it's a wonderful idea. We'll put it all together. Get people to volunteer to be there. get enough help, get all the stuff together, get it marketed and publicized, and then people show up and it's like, okay, you know, we've been through those. So anyway, sometimes it's nice just to stick to what you do and do it the best. But it was my son and his girlfriend put the whole thing together and took care of it last year, and they just, I mean, kids had a ball. But it was a beautiful day too, and it was a beautiful Easter Sunday. Farm days, we've had those in the past where we educate people about farming and have farm animals and different things there, and festivals and bluegrass, and that's Mr. Doyle Burke, if those people don't know it. Know Mr. Doyle, lives there in Long Creek, but Doyle's a fine fellow. But that's his little groups. Music, fundraisers, we do several fundraisers. The Y fundraisers held the second year, third year, they'll be at the farm. Tribal Centers had their fundraisers. Boy Scouts last Saturday we were there, had 90 Boy Scouts and parents there doing an advancement award for the Blue and Gold Banquet for Cub Scouts. So we always open the farm up, and I always put that plug in. My farm and our land is always open to Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts anytime they want to do anything. And we'll always be as long as I've got it. But anyway, we do a lot of different fundraisers, stuff like that. We've had the Seneca Prom was there, Shag events, Clemson Shag Club comes. They had some of the best kids you'll ever meet. I never realized that. Clemson University and the Shag Club is some of the best kids I've ever met in my life. Just most polite. You know, like I said, the younger generation, they're okay. They're gonna make it. They'll be all right. Community potluck every third Thursday of the month. Once we open up, we'll have open the farm up to community potluck. Everybody just brings something, shows up the kids, and whatever you want to drink at night. And we just have a really good time. Eagle Scout ceremony. And somebody approached us 3 or 4 years ago for a memorial service. Didn't have a clue, never thought about it, never even entertained the thought. But we've had about 3 there now. I think it's farms. And it's special events. Anybody know Mr. Gary Schmidt? Fine fellow, him and Troy. They fly in. The only fly-in restaurant in Oconee County is Chattooga Belle Farm. They fly in right between the vineyards right there. He'll circle about twice. I go clear people out of the way, and then Mr. Gary lands for lunch. He'll have his turkey sandwich, and when he's going to have a drink, and Troy comes in. They'll bring clients in from Just Aircraft, by the way. Those who aren't familiar with Just Aircraft, they're here in Walhalla. They manufacture and assemble and sell these aircraft all over the world. They ship them out to New Zealand, Alaska, all over the place. But I think they put together, I don't know, a couple hundred by now, I imagine. But do a really good job. It's a neat aircraft. Farm Entertainment Dinner, we have the first Sunday of every October. Once a year is all we do it. And those, we've already sold half the tickets already. They go on sale January every year, and half of them's already gone. If you've never been, it's really a fun experience. Local food, local chefs. We get the local FFA, the servers, and then we had the Georgia ambassadors for the farm school program came over and helped serve. But we just have a great time, live entertainment. It's really a fun evening. And plenty of wine. Coming in June, hopefully 2015, will be the first legal distillery in Oconee County since the Prohibition, or prior to Prohibition. We're making product right now. I know that can be controversial to a lot of people, but I try to figure out some way not to waste the fruit. Wine is one way, but it takes good quality fruit to make wine. We can take some substandard fruit, whether it's peaches or apples, turn it into cider, ferment it off, then distill it and turn it into brandy. And so, how long does brandy keep in a bottle? Long time. How long does a fresh apple keep? Not long. So that's a way to preserve the fruit, to extend the life of it. And so we're making product right now. We've got about 8 barrels. We age in our brandy and one time use Jack Daniel's barrels and turn it into a kind of a bourbon brandy. So we're still working on that. And back. Let's see how I get that to play. There's a video right there. You know how to click that on? Isn't it right there?
Oh, we don't have QuickTime.
You don't have one?
QuickTime.
Okay.
Is it on YouTube? I can.
I don't know.
I think it's on our website.
That's all right. While she's looking at that,
It-
Does anybody
yeah,
have-
It is on YouTube, I think.
yeah. Any questions about anything we talked about? Like I said, agritourism is, people get scared of it. And it's because sometimes about liability, when you have people come on your farm, they come on your land, but if they come in your store and they trip on the front door, whose fault is it? It's yours. If I come through here and trip right there, whose fault is it? The hairdresser, it's their fault. Yeah, we live in the Sioux Nation, unfortunately.
Right there.
So there's liability no matter what happens in life. And so you just have to be prepared for it with a good insurance policy.
Sorry.
Just friends those days, carefree and simple. Trouble was miles away. We walked in the springtime, sang out a song all the way. Melodies blew. Our harmonies tangled and straight. It wasn't long before we knew this was love. Let it grow, year by year, warm as a glove. Falling over our heads and the fire, bright red and yellow. The day that I gave you my name, we made a home, hand in hand, side by side. Some days were clear, others dark, laughed and we cried. And I won't let go, and I won't let go now. just don't live life slow. Live life slow. Live life slow.
All right, folks, y'all have any questions about anything we talked about tonight?
How do you keep the deer out of your?
You know, we actually get that question a lot. We're pretty lucky because we're out in the open. We only have one wood line that joins the farm where our fruit production is, and they have to cross the road to get there. And so I think that's probably our biggest thing. Now, I do have some rubs every now and then, some young apple trees. We love to eat those tender growth on the new trees. And every now and then a buck will scrape one, but very little trouble with wildlife. Wild hogs are probably our biggest nemesis as far as fruit production. And we got some good local hunters. I just pick up the phone and give a call, and they take care of that thing. So pretty much. And then coyotes are probably, we've lost more from coyotes to the cattle operation. We've lost 6 calves since we had cows that I know of on the farm. And that's one reason we just started a new cross fencing program and trying to get them closer to the barn, away from the wood line.
When you harvest the Japanese persimmon?
They're late. They're about the 1st of October, and they go all the way to the end of October up until the first frost. Once the first frost comes, you need to get them off the tree. But you can pick them, and they're good and firm, still sweet, or you can wait till they get like a native persimmon, where they're just mushy like custard. You could cut the top off, take a spoon, and eat it out just like custard almost. Yeah, so it depends on how sweet you want to get, because it just keeps getting sweeter.
What are your hours for the country store?
Country store, well, 7 days a week from 9 to 5.
May to October.
Yeah, that's what I'm sorry, May to
And
May to
by,
October.
and by appointment in the winter.
Yeah, so if I'm there, the store's open, pretty much.
How many acres do you have total?
138 acres on the farm there.
It looks like a lot more.
It's too many some days. I'm sitting on trying to cut, hey, it's too many acres.
Have you thought about making hard cider?
Hard cider, yes. I've
Well-
thought about it a lot, actually. It's the expense of the bottling equipment and the carbonation process. I make hard cider every year, but I don't sell it, but I give a lot of it away. But the muscadine apple hard cider, 2 weeks in the fridge, it's just right. You make it, you just take it home, leave it in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. You got a 1 week window of time to drink it, and then it goes bad.
We had somebody that made some really great hard cider for us, and we made an offer to him to come on board and, you know, come up with our own line of hard cider. And he opened his own brewery pub and wanted to buy our apples.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out.
I bought your cider twice trying to make hard cider. It was
Let it get to room, I'll tell you.
I failed miserable. I had super apple wine that was
Oh, yeah.
knocked me down, and the other stuff I was.
Put it in a 2-liter Coke bottle, let it bring it up to room temperature, put it in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. And you'll just keep eye on it. When it starts bubbling, it'll carbonate itself too. When it's under pressure, a 2-liter bottle won't blow up. It doesn't matter. You can shake it, throw it, stomp it, it still won't blow up. Cut 2-liter Coke bottle, and just, it'll carbonate itself, and it'll feed us. No, it's good. It's good.
And like the jellies and jams that you sell there in the store, are you able to can it yourself, if you will, or how
We
does
could,
that work? I mean, do you have-
we dabble back and forth. We got our kitchen certified as a certified cannerist
Okay.
Department of Agriculture. We can can our own products. The only product we make right now is our Belle's barbecue sauce. The rest of it we outsource. And after weighing, number one, the location of where we are versus Hillside Farms.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all are familiar with Hillside Farms over in Tiger, Georgia. One of the biggest canning operations in the southeast. But we take our bulk apples, we'll just take bins of apples over there, and I'll tell him I want half of it in apple salsa, half of it in apple relish, and bam. They call me in 2 or 3 weeks, I come pick it up on pallets, canned with our label, but it's our apples, 100% our product. Apple butter, apple jelly, apple cider, doesn't matter. We just take that quantity of apples over there and he turns it into product out of our stuff. And we still can put South Carolina certified on it because it's our,
It's your
yeah.
product.
They worked it out with the Department of Agriculture, South Carolina Department of Agriculture, because they're so close and we don't have another cannery in upstate South Carolina. There's no commercial cannery in upstate South Carolina that I can take my product to and let somebody can it for me, or a co-packer. There's a few small startup facilities that you can take your stuff to as an individual and have it canned and do, but that's something that Oconee County needs, a cannery too, by the way, along with the Ag Center, Convention Center, all in one place.
It's the, from planting a new apple tree to production, how long is it?
Well, on a standard tree, it's about 5 years, 4 to 5 years. But with the trellis system and the high-density orchard, we have 4 wires, about every 30 inches. This year, anything below the first wire, I'll let it produce. Next year, the next wire, I'll let it produce under there. And the next year, the 3rd level, I'll let it produce. The 4th year, I'll let it produce all the way up. So anything under that first wire, any limbs down there or fruit that may produce, I'll let those produce, throw everything else off. What we want to do is get that shaft to the top as fast as we can. So if you think of an apple tree, people always ask a question about how to prune. Like plumbing. You know, if you've got a shaft that's 2 inches, then you only can take a 3/4 line off of it, a 3/4 line here, 3/4 line there, 3/4 here, and you're out of water. And it's the same thing with the apple tree. You have to have enough shaft or plumbing down here to support the plumbing up there. So right now, we're cutting a lot of limbs off those new apple trees to where that shaft keeps going straight up to the top. Then we'll let it start producing a little bit more. But, yeah, with the high-density orchard and trellis, this year we'll let them produce a few apples. If I had 10 apples per tree, I'll be happy. But that's 10,000 apples. And one little lot.
And you irrigate your apple trees?
Yes. High-density orchard, you have to irrigate. There's no way possibly that Mother Nature can put enough water on it when you need it, with that many trees that close together. So we have irrigation set up now, and with that one block, the rest of the blocks are all lake water that we pump up to the tank tile. But that one orchard, I did it where I could put well water or lake water, just in case something went wrong with one system. I didn't want to take a chance, so I hedged my bets and put 2 systems to it.
And these trees are produced for 20, 25 years?
Yeah. Well, the high-density orchards, they're more like 20.
Okay.
20, they need to be replaced.
You know how the other orchards are doing? Is there a chance that we're going to lose another, or the other orchards in Long Creek? How they are?
Oh, yes, there's 5 other growers in Long Creek proper that grow apples still. There's only one of them that's added more apple trees. The rest of them are just using the trees that they inherited from their family and continue to produce on those. One other grower has actually planted a good many more trees. And then there's 2 growers in Mountain Rest, Mr. Carver and then John Gerber over at Mountain Rest that still grow apples. So we have 7 producers in Oconee County, apple growers that I'm aware of. Any other questions, folks? If not, thank y'all so much for coming out tonight. I always enjoy talking about the farm, talking about apples and agriculture and agritourism. So spread the word in Oconee County. You know, most people don't realize by 2050 we've got to double the world's food production. 2050 it's got to happen. And so how are we going to do it? 1 apple tree at a time, 1 acre at a time, 1 corn plant at a time, whatever it takes. So we need more people in agriculture. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.